in the past, the way that I healed was very biohacky,
Mm-hmm.
very overriding. Let's cut out macronutrients. Let's not eat for days. This is going to fix my body. And it's an assumption that something's wrong with me. Then that
Mm-hmm.
goes all the way back to the childhood stuff. Okay, so if my environment, my caregivers failed me in one other way, shape, or in a need that I have, it's so it's impossible for me to accept that this environment, my caretakers failed me, and so what am I going to do? I'm going to put it back on me and say that I'm bad, and that's going to follow me out later in life to where um, if I didn't have the education, when these things that have happened in the past, like let's say a big activation, I can. The education is what kind of the higher brain, as you would say,
Yeah.
pulls
Yeah.
me out of that like freak out mode and allows me to
Yep.
kind of slow things down and look under for what are the emotions that are coming up, what are the triggers, because I think the body is always trying to communicate with us, and it's if we're going 100 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
we can't see it.
Yeah.
So having that education in those moments when it gets tough, when it's a hard day or a tough a symptom pops up, that education pops in the head and goes, oh, remember this thing that said this is okay. Like, I'll tell you this one.
Yeah.
Um, when I started learning about my childhood and some things that didn't happen for me, it kind of felt like I was making it up, like it wasn't real. And it's almost like I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it.
Right.
And when the picture became very clear, and I saw it, and I was explaining to my wife, this is
Mm.
real, this definitely happened, and this is what I'm feeling. I threw up immediately, and
Ah.
I'm like, and she's like, I mean, we just woke up, we went for a walk, we come back here. I'm actually getting really excited telling her this because I just found a root cause that I didn't know was there that
Right.
made a lot of sense for a lot of the chronic stuff that I had been through. Instead of
Yep.
saying, hey, it's this head injury, like, nah, man, it's what happened way before that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm throwing up in the toilet. She's like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. I was like, I'll explain it in a minute. And so it's while you're in the fire, if you have the education, you can know the fire is not going to hurt you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it can be scary, but it's
Yep.
almost like knowing that you got a lifeline, knowing that this is a good thing, brings a little
Mm-hmm.
trust into the system.
Yeah.
A lot of times, a little bit of ease,
Yeah.
and I think noticing that relaxation, that opposite of activation, whatever you want to call it, I think that's a big part of the healing process too. And so the education for me, I'm a intellectualizer. I like to think my way to safety is what I've
Yeah.
learned. And so
Yeah.
having that without like with all of this context and nuance, like
Sure.
examples, different students, that's exactly what I needed. I'm like, I can do this.
The nausea throwing up thing is a very common thing that I think people get confused with. So I'll just speak to it because someone might be like, "What? Like, why is that good that he was throwing up?"
Yeah.
But when we've been disconnected, when we've been dysregulated, when we've been in a deep chronic shutdown functional freeze, things are kind of messy inside, not just physically and physiologically, but how we make meaning and how we connect our internal organs too. And so a common sign that things are coming back together, the fancy word would be the coupling dynamics are
Mm.
improving.
Hmm.
So a classic sign of things that are undercoupled becoming more properly coupled is nausea. And back to my example of getting my soft tissue worked on my arms, I knew that we had hit the right spot because I felt kind of ugh, like there's like a disgust.
Yeah.
And disgust is a primal emotion along with fear and anger and happiness and sadness and surprise and all of that. But we leave it out often. But when we feel some disgust, that shows that we're actually getting to the core of potentially old toxic shame.
Bingo. Yep.
And people will often say like, oh, so should I like try to make myself puke? It's like, no.
I did that in
Unfortunately,
college.
yeah, yeah, for other reasons. But there's like, until someone's in it, it's almost hard, Mitch, for me to describe it because that vomiting, nausea, visceral reaction is so primal.
Mhm.
And if you don't know what that's about, or if you haven't done the capacity to be able to heave, because when you puke, it's a massive physiological response at the autonomic nervous system level to expel food from the stomach
Yeah.
and liquid from the stomach. It means a massive shift has occurred. Anyway, I wanted to touch on that because sometimes people don't know the connection between nausea, puking for no reason, trauma, toxic shame, and things actually coming together. Of course, you don't want to be doing that every day.
No.